you been in New York?
I moved, let's see, I got the job. It was really quick. I auditioned and then I got the job
Sure.
a week later. They wanted me to move. So I moved end of June 2019, started July 1, and then, pandemic hit
Yeah.
March of 2020. So I was just kind of getting my bearings, getting into the city, focusing on the job, and then the world locked down.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, Kendall is one of the top Peloton instructors. I was actually this morning, one of the guys, I was at the computer and I was listening to another podcast that you did with somebody, and they walked by and they stopped. He stopped and he was like, "Wait a second, who is that?" And I go, "Kendall." And they were like, "I love her."
Oh,
He was like, "She is my favorite instructor." He goes, "I will not do a class only with her." What did he say? Wrote it out. He goes, "We're not in the saddle very long. It's a lot of up and down." So he loved that.
good. Oh my God, I appreciate that. It's so wild to hear that. It's still so crazy just how everything got popular really quickly and life changed very, very fast. So it's so fun to know there's that many people out there.
I mean, there's a
And they're
lot.
like people, they're
Yeah,
not just like numbers on a leaderboard, which sometimes it feels that way when you're just so distant from everybody.
there's a
But
ton of people on Peloton.
yeah, we have 6.6 million users, which is
Really,
pretty wild. Yeah. It's a wild number when you think about it.
it is.
Like
And
I've had classes that are like 20,000 plus, and that's Madison Square Garden.
yeah, that's like a state like that. You're performing in front of a stadium.
Yeah. I mean, it would be really, now, granted, I would love the experience of actually getting to do that. So maybe one
Sure.
day in the future it could happen because I think that energy would be wild. But
Uh huh.
yeah, it's pretty surreal when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we'll talk more about Peloton, but I know that there's a lot more to you than just a Peloton instructor. You grew up on the West Coast.
California. That's where I claim home. Granted, I was born in Texas, lived in Atlanta, but I moved to California when I was like 9, 10. So
Did you have brothers or sisters?
yeah, I have an older brother. So he's actually in Nashville now, which is great. And he liked California. He didn't love it. He
Yeah.
found his place in the South. And but yeah, so older brother, pretty fun.
What is he doing in Nashville?
He living life, being a dad. He's got I have a nephew named Brewer who's
Okay.
the sweetest thing ever. He's a chunker. He's about probably I mean, he came out the womb and he looked like he was like 1.5. I felt so bad for my sister-in-law. Oh my God, poor thing. But yeah, he's the sweetest. So yeah, he's working, living life, all that good stuff.
Yeah, Nashville's on fire right now, so he's in a good town. It's exciting.
Everybody moved. I remember like when he went out to school out there, and it was still before it kind of popped off. And then I started laughing because I grew up just outside of LA and I went to USC. And so
Yeah.
everybody I knew left LA and made this mass exodus. And I'm like, hold on. Like you never wore a cowboy hat one day in your life. And now you're fresh out of LA and you're trying to say y'all. At least I grew up where I feel like I'm allowed to say it. Like I
Yeah.
earned it. It's a great word.
Yeah.
It goes for everything. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's funny. There was a mass exodus out there.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I went to school. So my first year in Nashville was at Vandy was 2001.
Okay.
So I mean, the town has changed so
So
much
much.
in the
Certain
past.
things won't. Certain things can't though. Like Satco can go nowhere.
That's still
Every time I go
there.
back, I need Satco and I need queso dip, and it absolutely has to happen. I make my brother take me all the time. I'm like, we're going into the city.
That
But
place is yeah, that's an establishment. It's not going anywhere.
hmm
So I read that you were a gymnast early on in
yep,
cheerleading.
gymnast, cheerleading, all of like the independent sports that didn't involve actual hand-eye contact. Like, here's the irony: people think I'm
Uh
really athletic, and
huh.
technically I am.
Like, can you catch a ball?
Nah, that's where we start to throw. That's where it starts to go off the rails a little bit. I mean,
Gotcha.
granted, I've gotten better ish. I took up golf recently. But it's golf. It's hard for everybody.
It
It's
is. It
not a
is. Yeah, it's hard
sport.
for everybody. Do they
It's
have
so
like
frustrating.
Do they have like Top Golf there?
We don't have a Top Golf, which is so funny for New York. I thought there would be, but there's like versions of it. There's like Chelsea Piers you can go, but there's no Target. There's no,
You
extra fun to it.
you're just hitting
But
it.
yeah, so gymnastics, dance, all of the independent sports that didn't involve throwing or catching anything.
I've talked to a few gymnasts, and I mean it's very very structured, especially at a young age.
Mhm.
Did you like that? Did you not like it? Because I mean
As
go ahead.
uh,
Sorry.
no,
Go ahead.
as a grown woman now,
Yeah.
I look back and I realize how toxic a lot of that training can be. It worked for me because I was a very high strung perfectionist kid and
Yeah.
I was hard on myself. I mean, I still am. I'm healing from that now, but I would beat myself up. And that's kind of how it is with training, right? Like I remember being at like 9 and, if you didn't hit 40 pull-ups on the bar, you're humiliated and you're running around the gym and everybody knows. And there was a lot of
Wow.
shame involved in the training.
Yeah.
I look back on it and now going through what I have, mental health wise, pardon,
Mm-hmm.
my little Bowie is going after
Oh,
the
that's
neighbor,
all right.
my little boy. But I look back on it and I realize how it probably didn't help me, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it did teach me a lot of resilience. It taught me a lot of resilience. It taught me to fight for myself, work hard for myself. I mean, I had an 8-pack when I was 6, so that was. I looked like a bullfrog. I had like a bowl cut and was
Uh-huh.
just jacked, super jacked. But yeah,
And
I mean, I appreciate it for what it gave me.
yeah. I've read and listened to quite a bit last couple of weeks getting ready for this, and you've recently in the last couple of years started really talking about mental health and going to USC and all the
Yeah.
things that you went through. You care to touch on that at all or no?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm an open book with it.
Sure.
I think for me now, that's kind of why I feel responsible for the platform I have.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't really use it for something that I can speak to and for something good, I don't think I really deserve it, to be
Yeah.
quite frank. I have a pretty firm stance on that. So I'm happy. I'm an open book when it comes to mental health.
So how did you get to USC?
So USC was interesting. I, like any pretty much LA kid, I acted. We all
Oh,
did.
did you?
Oh, I did. Yeah, kid actor saw. Ooh, you see a lot. You see a
Yeah.
lot at a
That's a
very
lot of
young age.
that's a lot of rejection too.
Yes. Oh my God, so many no's. The amount
Yeah.
of times it was me and someone else, and we have the contract on the table, and I think my life's going to change, and this magical moment's going to happen, and
Mm-hmm.
oh, it gets pulled out from underneath you. Pilot season is rough, getting a pilot and then it not getting picked up, all of it. So I will say I'm very used to. No doesn't thwart me
Yeah.
anymore. It doesn't throw me off just because I think I had such an upbringing with no. But then that did probably affect a little bit getting into college. Then when I got yeses, I couldn't really believe them. I'm
Okay.
like, when's the other Jenga bread? Like, when's the other shoe gonna drop? When's the other thing gonna happen?
Well, I'm sure with gymnastics too, like you're chasing that perfection that's never really attainable either. I mean, occasionally you might strike it, but it's not really,
I
you
was
know.
not Simone Biles. We'll put it that way. No, I wasn't gifted in that way.
Why did you want to act as a kid?
I really fell in love with storytelling, like
Okay.
from a really young. And my parents, I think, kind of knew something was off. We had this house in Atlanta where we had like a staircase in the front and a staircase in the back, and
Mm-hmm.
so the back staircase overlooked like the family room. So for me, all of the kids' bedrooms were upstairs, and so I would just like sneak out. I was a night owl, and I'd sit up on the landing and like watch whatever movie they would watch and hope they wouldn't see me.
Yeah.
My mom had instincts, so of course she knew. My dad was absolutely, God bless him, completely oblivious.
Mm-hmm.
And one night they were watching Braveheart, and I was really little. I think I was like 4 or 5,
Okay.
and I was just obsessed. I had to watch it. I had to see the whole thing. My mom was so annoyed, and she's like, "Fine, fine, come downstairs. You're gonna sit here like an adult. You're gonna watch it with us. You're not allowed to close your eyes. If you're like, you're not allowed to." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay." So the fight scene happened in that big, all the blue faces. And I really remember this, which is funny, and like the music and the drama of it all. And I loved it. And I know there's one moment where this sounds so dark, but there's one moment where in the battle, someone gets beheaded.
Uh-huh.
My dad like looked over like, oh God, no, Kendall just saw that. And I was just like posted to the TV, fascinated by it. So from that point, I just loved movies. I loved storytelling. I loved how powerful it was that you could kind of feel connected to something deeper. And I think that's what drove me to acting and the kind of the creative stuff there. When you're a kid, I couldn't produce, I couldn't direct, but
Sure.
I made my own movies at home, but acting was accessible. So I think that was kind of why.
Were you doing like drama and plays and stuff in high school and everything like that?
So I was a weird enough kid that I was I was independently schooled or homeschooled for high school. So what all the kids
Oh.
had to do for like during everything with pandemic, being schooled from home, I was kind of ahead of the curve on that one. I chose to do that. I booked a short film that then ended up we got it made into a feature, and I was also in the feature. But at that point, the short film was going to be like 14, 15 days of shooting my
Mm-hmm.
freshman year of high school. And if I went, they would have it was public school. So they're like, well, we're going to
Yeah.
kick you out because we can't
Yeah.
get money off of
Yeah.
missing that many.
Yeah.
And then I did online independent school and realized, oh, I can get this done. I can graduate in 3 years. So I
Yeah.
did. So I just cruised through it, spent all day watching movies, hanging out with my mom. Like we would go on adventures around LA, see a bunch of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, graduated in 3 years, took a year off, tried to do one more push for the whole acting thing, and then ended up getting into USC and going that route.
What were you doing? What like were you? I think what you were cheerleading at USC?
I ended up cheerleading kind of on a whim. It was
Yeah,
something to do. I was the weird homeschool kid, so I was like, let me try and like have all the normal experiences that I
yeah,
missed. Yeah, made the cheer team there. That was a blast. I mean, running out on that field is so fun. I remember the Stanford SC game that was completely sold out, and that was unbelievable, unbelievable. So that was a great, like all those cool,
sure.
once in a lifetime experiences.
Yep.
And then I was there. I was in the business program as well as I got into the film school there.
Okay.
So I was more on producing and whatnot. That's what I thought I was going to do, graduating, and that's kind of what I did do. And fitness kind of fell into my lap.
Wouldn't it be great if choosing how you feel was as easy as picking a song on your phone? Tap the button to feel energized without any caffeine. Tap the button to feel relaxed when you're stressed. When I heard that a wearable device called Happy lets you change how you feel, I didn't believe it, so I had to try it. Happy works by delivering signals to give you the same sensations as caffeine, alcohol, and melatonin, without any of those chemicals or side effects. Signals are a song only your body can hear. They're made by Happy to replicate the unique magnetic signatures of popular everyday ingredients. Just by switching the signal on your phone, you can change how you feel. I love using signals to boost my energy like drinking a cup of coffee, or increase my focus when I need to crank out some work. They even have signals for getting deeper, more restful sleep. It's wild, and it really works. I've been using it to exercise, and it really helps a ton. Happy is backed by decades of research. Plus, it has a 365-day guarantee. You can try it for a whole year. Give Happy a try, and you're going to love it as much as I do. Order today and you'll save 25% and get 30 days free access to all their signals. Take advantage of the 365-day guarantee today. Go to happy.com/Cutler. That's HAPBEE.com/Cutler to save 25% on your order. Happy.com/Cutler. I read that you were like tech startup too at some point. Your dream job?
Yeah, my first job, oh God, my first job out of college was at a really well-known tech startup. And it was fascinating and a rough culture. And yeah, it was an experience. And that's kind of what caused the pivot, was knowing like, I'm not working in this type of environment again. This is not healthy. This isn't the type of environment I want to be in, but I know I want to tell stories. I know I want to help people and empower people. So on a whim, it was I have a mentor who's a director who had a boxing gym on the West Side. And I
And
would work on a lot of
you kind of had your first like mental health stuff in college too as well, right?
yeah. College is where it all kind of really came to a head. So I had a couple like issues with OCD when I was a kid. I think a lot of it was rooted a lot in the gymnastics too, and the
Sure.
perfectionism and control. And then went to
Like
therapy for that.
what kind of OCD things? Like my buddy was like
Yeah.
my buddy in college, he was like, the three lights on thing, on and off.
Yeah.
He
The
would
light switch. Yep. That was me too.
he would do like he had a Chevy Trailblazer, and
Yeah.
the volume had to be in three, so it had to be like 9 or 12
Yep.
or 15, and he would step out to get gas, and I would put it like at 16,
You would not mess with them.
and he'd get back in the car,
Oh.
and he'd sit there for a second, and he'd be like, and turn it back down to 1, like he could hear like if it was on the threes.
It's wild. Yeah. Mine was that. It was light switches. I had a very severe bedtime ritual. And then for me, I couldn't have dirty feet. Like
Dirty feet.
Dirt, yeah. Which I mean, I still agree with that today. I think
Yeah,
dirty feet
sure.
Like, I think I have white sheets on every bed now, just so that I'm like, the second that it needs, nope, not happening.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it was funny about the whole feet thing. And then now I will say, like, now I'm proud. I love being barefoot and walking around barefoot, all that. I'm still very clean with my hygiene.
Uh-huh.
But there was something about that, and I needed to wear socks that really bothered me.
What
And it was
happens if the socks got dirty?
That I felt like that was the layer of protection between my feet. But the funny thing now is living in New York,
Yeah.
and you as like walking on the streets. Oh my God, they're disgusting.
Oh yeah.
So I still have a little bit of it. Like I have like a bin when you walk into my house. Like you put your shoes in the bin. I will give you socks or like slippers. I had a very my mom kept our house really nice. I think part of it was that too. But still, it's like, take your damn shoes off. Do not walk in my home with your shoes. I think it's so gross.
I make people take their shoes off. I mean, I've got 3 kids, so like they're in mud and all this stuff. So I'm like, just take your shoes off. I'm not cleaning floors 14 times a day.
Yep.
So
Yep. Total sense.
I understand that. I get that. So you were your mentor in boxing. Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So my mentor, I met him in one of my film classes at SC. Kind of on a whim. kind of quick wit talk back because I walked in late, totally forgot he was speaking to the class.
Yeah.
I was hungry. I got food. Whoops.
Happens.
And yeah, and then you walk into the front of the room and just, get the stare of death because I walked in late. Oh God, and this is like an important person. And I just had an instinct I was going to work with him. I knew we had similar vibe, and I went up at the end of class and I was like, oh my God, typical hyperactive myself. I was like, how did you do it? Like, I want to learn everything. I want to do everything. And he looked at me and he's like, how old are you? And I was like, 20. And he's like, dear God. He's like, okay. He's like, go travel the world, go get your heart broken, go lose all your money. He's like, I don't care. Go get arrested. Just like live your life. You have nothing to tell. You have no stories to tell. So you've lived it. Very sound advice. I then was in Italy that summer. My boyfriend at the time broke up with me over text message. The next day I got robbed on the tram by the only hot man I found in Italy. And
so
I was like,
you had a story then. You're living life. Why did he break up with you on text?
He was young. I dated this guy. He thought he was going to get picked up by a certain team, and then that fell apart, and I think his world fell apart.
Gotcha.
And then,
have you spoken to him since?
No, we haven't. Although, no, actually, no. How messed up is this? His brother hit me up in the DMs recently.
Oh boy.
Not knowing, but he had to know.
He has to know.
He has to know. But his brother took my class or something. It's funny how they all come back in some way, shape, or form.
At some point, yes.
Yeah, and his brother, I think, was trying to. I was like, no, sweetheart, no. But I think he's married now, so good for him. I'm happy he found his person. We weren't right together. It's all good. Yeah. And actually, I'm grateful for that because it kind of was the trigger point and kind of the domino effect. I reached out to this mentor of mine and said, hey, I did everything. I'm never going to get arrested. I met the head of the cops in Rome. I'm friends with them now. It's not going to happen.
How long were you in Italy for?
I was there for almost 4 months.
Oh, wow.
It was great. It was fun. Every week travel.
Oh, were you in Rome and then you would travel from there?
I lived in Rome. I had Italian host parents. We're still friends. And then at that time, my Italian's terrible now because it's out of practice. But I was finishing up my Italian and then a cinema requirement for one of my film classes. It was great. It was actually a really great experience. But after that, I was like, all right, I did everything, went back, started working with my mentor. And he was like, you're a lot. He's like, you have a lot going on. Yeah, no shit. And he's like, come to the gym. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I really respect this guy, but he does a lot of, I mean, you would say his movies are like, they're machismo. They're like very great movies about heroes, really great stuff. So
is this a boxing gym?
It's a boxing gym. This is one of his friends. And so he owns this boxing gym on the west side. And I roll in my red Beetle with my sparkly USC sticker on the back.
You had a red Beetle?
I had a red Beetle. It was so, driving that around like, South Central. Oblivious. Whatever. It was fun. It was a moment. And so, go to this boxing gym and it's blood and sweat on the ground and all guys and the only girl there. And he's like, all right, lace up. Like, we're putting gloves on. You're going to learn how to fight. And I was like, okay. Even though I was protesting internally, I was like, it's him. You're going to know this is a moment of respect. Like, you're going to do it.
Yeah. Got to do it.
Yeah. And then I got on the mitts with one of his trainers there, and it was a little awkward at first. And then I heard that like smack, and it connected for the first time. I think I threw a cross, and immediately I was like, "Oh wait, I love this." And then that became training 3 times a week. He was great. That was like my second home.
Why do you think you loved it so much, or why do you think you needed it at the time?
It was the one place my head would shut off.
Got it.
It's the only place I would have to empty my mind because the second that I would start to think, I would waste my energy, or I'd get caught.
You get hit, yeah.
You get hit. Yeah. Second, you're not present. So it was such a great. There's so many metaphors in boxing too, that are great life metaphors. Like not draining your energy until your opponent's on you. It's the same thing. Like not over worrying about something until that moment strikes. Trusting your training, being present, not anticipating, all that. There's so many things. So that planted the seed with fitness. And then a few months went by, and then I really kind of had my what I consider my breakdown, my darkest moment. It was right around Thanksgiving, and I was at a point I just felt numb. I had been feeling numb incrementally for quite some time, and it got to the point where it's like I just felt nothing. I was over it. Yeah. It's hard to describe that headspace because I'm in such a different spot now.
Sure.
But it was such a visceral, real experience then. And
Was boxing kind of saving you for a little bit through that, and then just wasn't enough then at that point?
it wasn't enough because I
Yeah.
wasn't doing the healing I needed to do for myself. Look,
Yeah.
movement is incredibly helpful. I think
Yep.
it's a part of, it's a piece of it.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, I needed therapy. I needed medication. I needed to balance myself out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I got to a really dark place and was suicidal, and thank God didn't go through with it.
Yeah.
And immediately looked at my phone, and my mom had called me 15 times.
No.
Yeah, she knew.
Really?
I get teared up thinking about it, because that's really what, before that moment, I had this flash of what would become of my family.
Yeah.
Had I continued with that decision, and that pulled me back enough. And then I looked at my phone, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I need you to come pick me up."
So she knew.
She knew. That instinct is so real.
That's wild. So she came. She came and picked you up immediately.
Came and picked me up immediately.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the next 3.5, 4 months of my life, I don't remember. I don't remember a stitch of it.
Really?
I don't remember Christmas. I don't remember New Year's. I know I couldn't get out of bed for a couple days. I remember kind of being in and out of bed. And I remember my dad coming up to my room. And it's funny because I close out all my classes with this, but it's kind of been that phrase and that motto that's gotten me through so much. It's kind of a family thing. And I remember him kind of pleading with me, and he's like, "Look, kiddo," he's like, "I love you, but if you don't get out of bed and start kind of doing this and get into therapy," he's like, "we're going to put you in an inpatient.
Yeah.
We too much. Like, we got to do something."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What do we do? What do we do?" He's like, "You're knocked down. You're not knocked out. You're not knocked out. You're not knocked out." And he kept telling me that. And so it's been really cool having that 180 moment of taking that motto in my darkest time that my dad gave me, and kind of that family motto, and then pulling it into how I teach and how I close out my classes today.
Sure, that's amazing. I mean, somebody would look at you right now in your class and your Instagram, and they would never think that, whenever you were 20, 21, 22 years old, like you were battling that.
Yeah. And the other side of it too is like that battle continues. Like I went through working at that tech startup that was positive until it was very negative, and reframing my whole life. I had to figure out what I was going to do next, and I made a promise to myself. I was like, I will never work for a company or for an environment where I am not empowering someone else or feeling empowered in the process. Like, that's just my non-negotiable in any aspect. That goes to anything in my life now.
Yeah.
So it was interesting how important that pivot was. And then I started teaching actually with the same trainer who got me into boxing. He was opening up a fitness studio in LA.
So you took the rest of the semester off? Did you go back to school and finish?
I did, because it was my senior year.
Sure.
So I also, to this day, go figure, I'm almost 30 and I still have stress dreams when I'm going through a lot, this is how like type A I was, and like straight A, annoying. I was one of those annoying people.
Oh, gotcha.
But I was like, oh my God, I missed my final. I'm not going to graduate on time. I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, dear God, no, like you're good. We're here. You have your diploma. You're fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I took those couple months. My professors were incredible.
Yeah.
No, and that was the other thing too, and I want people to know this. Like, I did not tell anybody.
No one knew.
No one knew. Even my parents. I'm incredibly close with my family. My brother didn't know.
Straight
Nobody
A's. You had straight A's. Yeah. I mean, living life, having fun.
Being on a film set, then turning around here. Like, you would have had no idea. Still going out, still being social, but it was just high functioning. I was just really great at hiding it. And that's, I think, the big thing is, like, you have to have compassion, not knowing. You don't know what the hell anybody's going through.
At all.
And they can pretend that they're fine, but you can't assume that you have any understanding of their experience.
Do you think that whenever you finally had that breakdown, like you were functioning so high and like you were just exhausting yourself, and finally it was just like enough's enough, and your brain was just like, I just got to rest?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it was just shut down. And I think what happened was I was running on fumes for so long, keeping up this expectation that I was putting on myself.
This facade.
Yeah, the facade and the mask. And I talked about that in a lot of my classes, and that's kind of what created that shift about a year into teaching to being open about it.
Sure.
Because I felt myself running into that mask again, right? And being on this pedestal and having this platform and
smile.
Yeah, she's like the bubbly California girl who like weirdly likes rock. But which there's a whole other depth there, which then now people get the mental health thing. They're like, oh yeah, she's angry. It's like, it's a lot. But it was interesting. It got to the point, I think my brain I exhausted my body, and then my brain needed the rest. And then my emotions, like there's that separation, right, between your amygdala, which was where your emotional brain is, and
Yep.
your rational brain. And the emotional brain took over because the rational brain was just like, I can't do this anymore. I
Yeah.
can't negotiate this any longer. And that inflection just really
Sure.
brought me to that place.
Yeah, I totally understand. Totally get it. So you're now then you're so now you're teaching at the boxing class.
Yep, I'm teaching a boxing class. I'm broke as hell.
Okay.
I moved back in with my parents.
You probably have 2 degrees right now at this point.
Yep. Oh, which God knows how expensive it is.
Uh-huh. USC is not cheap.
My God. No, and it doesn't get any cheaper. I love
No.
that place, Fight On, but dear Lord, I don't know. I don't know. Good luck. You have 3 kids. Have fun. I don't know what's going to happen at that point.
No kidding. No, I mean, I mean, I don't think people are going to college anymore. I mean, but we'll see what happens.
I know. I think it's going to be one of those situations where you can kind of build your own degree. I would hope that would be the case because I think you should always continue learning. I think the concept of college is great, but I think it's also the transition period, the emotional growth that's supposed to happen in college. That's really important.
That's what it is. I mean, it's a social experiment. I mean, you're learning how to negotiate social, adventures and relationships and everything else. I mean, there's a handful. I mean, like 10%, 5% of people who really need college. The rest of them are just figure out their life at some point.
Yeah, and that was a lot of messy. There was a lot of crazy.
Guys, if you struggle every year to find the perfect gift for Mother's Day, I've got you covered. Get her some Lake pajamas. They're the softest pajamas imaginable. Pajamas make the perfect gift for your mom, wife, mother of your children, or any mother figure in your life. And with gift boxes, you can add to your order. It's a turnkey gift that shows up to your door ready to go. Just go to lakepajamas.com and use code J10 for 10% off your purchase. That's lakepajamas.com and use code J10 for 10% off. Limited one-time use per customer.
But yeah, so it's funny that way where, I moved back home with my family and a little ego bruised, and I'm a prideful person when it comes to like what I expect of myself. And again, that's that like little baby gymnast me that's like, you should be further by now. So there's a lot of negative self-talk. I'm also, and once I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, that's just how my brain works. Like there's a certain neural pathway that I go down. So there's been a lot of growth in figuring out, okay, as I continue to age and grow, how that changes. But anyway, it was trying not to beat myself up and then figuring out what in the hell am I going to do? And it was the first time in my life I did something that I knew I enjoyed. Okay. It wasn't the thing I was expecting myself to do. A lot of my friends were working at like some of the big 4 and I'm like, oh my God, you're killing it. And I'm like, back with my parents, it's all good. You can't compare. And sure enough, you can't, because I think the 4th class I taught, the owners of a different boxing fitness gym that was opening up in LA that already had a foothold in New York came in to take my class. And that night they took me to dinner. They're like, can you come audition for us? I auditioned for them in New York. So New York started calling early, which is kind of funny, and got that job. Moved there pretty much a week later. Again, it's funny how that happened with Peloton too. Yeah. And I taught and kind of was training up to open their LA studio for about 6 months in New York City. And that was awesome. I mean, that was such a good experience to be. I think I was 24, 25 at the time, living in New York, figuring it out, still not making a ton of money, but more than I was making before. So it was feasible. And, you're a girl in New York. You don't really have to pay for much. You can kind of find your way. Yeah. So that sounded way more suspect than what it was. It's just like you get invited. I was like, hold on, let me clarify here. Mom, dad, like chill.
I knew what you did. I knew what you meant.
No, it's like, hey, you want to come to this, whatever? And you're like, yeah, I'm starved. And there's a dinner before. Perfect. I come to catch and get a catch roll and then hang for the party. Perfect. So enjoyed that. Went back, opened up the LA studio, and that was good, but was feeling like a shift needed to happen. And sure enough, I got a DM slide. Did you want to stay? Did you want to stay in the fitness world? Was that comfortable for you? I was teetering. It's funny because I was really wanting to get back into producing. Yeah. There's still projects that I was in development on that I was kind of writing, creating myself. I love development. I love that process where I was like, maybe it's time to pivot. Sure. But I still felt like I really want to empower. I really enjoy that. I love teaching, especially women, how to box, watching their confidence shift. I had a client and she had gone through a really, really toxic relationship. She walked in, I met her. Her shoulders were down. She could barely make eye contact with me. Yeah. And it was really cool week by week to watch her shoulders start to settle in and her eyes and her chin lift. And you just saw like, oh, this woman is finding power. Yeah. And that feeling, especially for women to know, like, you don't have to be this cute little demure perfect thing all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're allowed to kick ass. You're allowed
Sure.
to,
Yeah.
F shit up and
Yep.
make it happen. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to see that transformation. I love that. So I didn't know how to negotiate either.
Uh-huh.
And then lo and behold, DM came in from Peloton. Had no idea what it was. Went to a showroom.
Were
Had to,
they had just started, or were they kind of just building talent and kind of getting ready to go?
so they were in business for a while. They had the
Okay.
showroom. They had, I think, about 1 million, 2 million members
Okay.
globally. But at that, it wasn't globally yet. Actually, it was just the United States, and I think they just launched Canada. So
Okay.
that was in 2019.
Gotcha.
And studied up. Was at the little Century City showroom every day, trying to figure out how this bike worked. I'd never taught a cycling class.
Uh-huh.
I can now tell people that. I didn't tell people that in interviews for a while. I was new and to let people know that I had no idea what I was doing.
First time on a bike was my first class.
Yeah, first time teaching on a bike, hell yes,
Yeah.
totally. Was my premiere ride, and there were
Yeah.
16,000 people there, so talk about pressure. But
Dang.
yeah, that was wild.
Mhm.
But yeah, went through the process, auditioned, and I knew when I flew to New York, I had a feeling I was going to get the job.
Yeah.
Again, I had that instinct and that kind of knowing, and came out of the audition, and I was like, oh my God, this is in the bag. And then I started realizing, oh wow, you're going to move, your
Back
life
to-
is going to change.
Back to New York.
Back to New York now for a
Yeah.
for an unset time.
Yeah.
You live in your world. And so we did the interviews, flew back. I don't know if you take Cody's classes. Everybody knows Cody. He was on Dancing
Yep.
with the Stars.
Yeah.
And Cody calls me the second I land pretty much. And he's like, hey, boo, so you got the job. And I'm like, oh, I'm expletives in my head, like freaking out. It's a gorgeous day in California, perfectly sunny.
Yeah.
It's like raining and cool back.
Shitty in New
Hey,
York. Yeah.
hey, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And he's like, great, can you move in a week? And I'm like, why the hell do people want me to move to New York in a week every time
Yeah.
I get a job? Like, can you just give me a second?
Yeah.
But anyway, I pretty much moved in a week and started the process and training. And that was 3 months of intensity and launched in September. And then
So you trained for 3 months?
3 months, that was it. It was rough.
I feel like that's kind of a long time though.
Well, it's funny. A lot of the newer instructors have trained for a lot longer.
Yeah.
Just because of different disciplines and whatnot. 3 months was a lot and not a lot at the same time because we had all of the different types of classes. You're getting used to teaching on camera, you're managing a room, it's kind of like
Talking.
I mean, you're doing a million things at once. Like you
Yeah.
have to compartmentalize your brain in so many
Yeah.
different ways, but also be incredibly present.
Yep.
And to feel comfortable in that. And for me, I totally had imposter syndrome through the process. Like there was a moment in training where Cody pulled me aside and he goes, hey, sweetheart, listen, you got to get it together.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I think you should go back to LA. I think you should see your family. Remember who the hell you are and get your ass back here and then figure it out. And that was
Why? What was going wrong?
I think I was so in my head about what the expectation was. I was putting an expectation on myself. I had to be this like Peloton instructor, and you walk in and I'm like, okay, I've never taught cycling before.
Yeah.
Everyone seems like a damn Avenger. Like these figures. And you're like, where is my place in this all?
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, I kind of had a little trippy ego moment and got back, and it was funny. It was kind of up to the wire, but that premiere class, all of the instructors are in the front row that could make it. I'm looking at Cody and Robin staring directly at me, which talk about sobering.
That's kind of daunting.
It was daunting as hell. Matt
Yeah.
Wilpers left. I was trying to cut jokes to get the tension out of the room before we went live.
Sure.
And I remember I called him out. I'm like, you have a spreadsheet for this? Are you going to grade me? And he just started out. He's such a power zone guy and such a numbers dude, which I love. And that broke the tension a bit. And then the camera came on, the red light's on, and I'm like, it's now or never, F it.
Gotta
and there's
go.
something, I'm one of those people, I can put myself through all the hell and make my life harder than it needs to be. But under pressure, when it's time, got it. And that
Check it out.
was great. And that, started everything. So.
Did it progress? I mean, I'm sure it did, but I mean, how quickly were you like, all right, I've got this. This is easy. Because I'm sure class 2, class 3, class 4, it gets easier and easier. But when did it click and it was like, all right, no problem. I can do this.
Yeah, it was probably, I'd say a good 2 months of trying all the different types of content. And then also oh God, it's going to make people go back in time, whatever. I was trying to figure out even who I was on the bike. What is what is me,
Yeah.
or really like just more uncovering myself. Like I love heavy rock.
Sure.
I have I do metal rides. People know I
Yep.
taught an Iron Maiden ride recently. Like
Uh-huh.
it's a lot.
Hmm.
And I thought I had to be like bubbly California girl, right? I
Yeah.
thought I had to live up to that expectation. So I was playing music that wasn't really in my jam and in my vibe. And then at a certain point, it just became like, why the hell am I doing this? Why am I wearing bright red lipstick? Like that's not me. Like,
Yeah.
and I started dressing the way that I would dress and
Hmm.
just kind of peeling the layers off.
Sure.
And then once that kind of happened, I'm like, oh, I can show up as myself and this vibes and people support it and we're
Hmm.
connecting and it's making an impact.
Hmm.
That's when it kind of hit. So I'd say December, January, after that September was good. So I'm in the pocket, right? Everything's going good. I'm loving it,
Yeah.
building an audience. People are lovely. And then we had a couple more months and then pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And then I didn't teach because I didn't have enough space in my apartment at the time to do the at-home setup. And they were using,
really?
yeah. So there was I want to say only 10 instructors across the modalities that were teaching from home.
Okay.
And the rest of us, I was in a studio apartment at the time in New York in the middle of wild COVID, sirens left and right. People freak. It was like being in World War Z. It was the strangest thing. I remember walking to Times Square. There was not a soul.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about New York and during like when it was bad, and
It sucked. It was not fun.
Awful.
It was awful.
So
It was just this energy just went away.
Uncut with Jay Cutler is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be a little overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare, so it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at Progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Because I feel like a lot of people were riding. They were just home. So you didn't get to teach throughout it.
I didn't teach for about 3 months. And then we were then back in studio with a lot of stipulations, obviously with no audience, in studio.
Yeah.
Right? We still don't have people in studio. Hopefully that's going to be coming back in the coming months.
Oh, there's still nobody in studio there?
Still nobody in studio. So talk about like, how weird is it? Like I talk to myself on camera every single day.
Yeah.
I'm sure things have gotten rewired in a weird way over this period.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
It's wild. So
I did not know that. I thought you guys had people back in there. I didn't know it was just an empty room and you just talking to a screen.
Empty as hell. 8 cameras.
That's hard.
It is. And I remember coming back.
Because there's no energy. It's just you.
It's just you vibing out to the music, trying to like mentally. You kind of put yourself in the place of like, well, it takes a lot of self-confidence. You're like, if I'm enjoying this beat drop, I'm gonna make it a moment.
Yeah.
Hopefully y'all are with me.
Yeah.
Whether you think I'm great or you think I'm psychotic, but whatever. Like it is.
And there's also that pressure. You got 10, 20,000 people on the other side of that riding with you, and then they expect you to be at the top every time and turn it on.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's kind of I'm really grateful for the audience and the community because it's kept me accountable to taking care of myself. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm in a rough spot, I have to be able to turn that off for a moment when I'm teaching. Like those red lights come on and it's like, okay, we have a job to do. We have something to focus on. But I can imagine it's the same thing in any high pressure job or like in a professional sport. It's the same thing. You have to separate yourself the second that it's time. Yeah. And you focus on what you can focus on. And if anything, again, it's kind of nice. It reminds me of boxing where my head would turn off. When I teach, I'm not worried about any of that.
Yeah, like it all floats away.
Yeah, it does. And it is both healthy. And then it also asks me to, show up authentically because if I'm going through it, a lot of my motivation, I think, comes from my own problems and issues. Mm-hmm. So things will come out, from the back of your head and you'll recognize, oh, this is great. Or I'll listen to podcasts or read. I'm read all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for more information. I'm like, what can we bring to class? What can click for somebody?
Yeah. I mean, do they give you pretty big freedom of control over creative control over your rides and what you say and your message and everything?
Yeah, thank God. I appreciate it. They're, they put a lot of faith in us
Yeah.
to show up exactly as we are and,
Mm-hmm.
for us to motivate. And there's eyes on you. But I think that's the funny thing about Peloton is like, as a group, we are a really great team because we all provide something that somebody else doesn't in the same way.
Yeah.
And so it really is about showing up as yourself
Mm-hmm.
and taking whatever is on your journey. Certain people will connect with it. When you have 6.6 million people,
It's a lot of people.
someone can connect with the instructor or messaging that or their energy that they, and it's pretty awesome that and I will tell work, I'm like, listen, I love explicit hip hop. I will not play it without it being, to me, it's not it. I can't write. I don't vibe with it.
Uh-huh.
There's certain songs that's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot.
Uh-huh.
Maybe not the Whisper song fully. I get it. Fine, unfortunately.
Uh-huh.
But, in general, they're like, hey, that's you.
Yeah.
If that's you, say it. Like, Jen Sherman drops an F-bomb every class or 12. I love her for it. And that is Jen. Like, when you meet her, every other word, it's great. That's just how she is. So.
How many classes are you doing a week? Depends.
It really depends. So now that we added shadow boxing, which is like a total labor of love, we finally launched that after a lot of time. I teach live classes. I teach about 4. Let's see. I have 2 on. I have to think in my head. I have 1 to 2 on Sunday, 2 on Monday, 1 to 2 on Thursday, and then I record after. That's the wild thing. So I'll teach live, and then I'll record 2 to 3 classes immediately after I record the live class. Oh yeah, it's rough. It's rough. And then Tuesdays or Wednesdays, depending, I will record shadow boxing. And that's rough. Shadow boxing is tough to teach because you're constantly cueing, you're constantly moving,
How long is that class?
The longest I've taught for shadow boxing is 30 minutes. But I've done.
And you talk through it.
Everything. I don't shut up. It's too much. I'm so sick of my own voice. It's so annoying. I did never listen to it again. But
I love it. I love it. You've got other stuff going on too, though, right?
Yeah.
What do you got?
So I'm a huge mental health advocate. I work with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Okay.
I'm really excited. Actually, in the coming weeks, I'm going to announce. So I work with this brand, Spiritual Gangster.
Okay.
Great clothes, great people, and we're partnering up on some capsule collections upcoming, which I'm really excited about. So are
you helping to design them?
Yes.
Awesome.
Which I'm incredibly excited about. I have a lot of opinions.
Okay. I could guess that.
Yeah. A bit opinionated. I blame the Italian and my mom. She's very opinionated. I definitely got it from her.
That's what all Italians say.
That is true. That's true. It's our excuse. That's really not one. But I'm designing for them. I have a couple more design collabs that are yet to be announced that are coming out this year. And then really focusing on doubling down on mental health. So anything I can do to destigmatize, lots of speaking engagements.
Yeah.
Just out there in the world. And then really wanting to take what I do on Instagram. I have something that I do called Chats on the Green. It's just a straight Instagram live discussion where anybody can come in and ask questions on mental health. And we kind of go there and we have some honest conversations, whether it be about, relationships or family dynamics or mental health and certain tactics or tricks that help. And so for me, it's really just trying to show up in a space that can be very curated and, feel very much like a highlight reel, kind of bring some truth and some honesty and community there. So there's a lot.
But I mean, you seem to be super busy.
I like it that way.
Yeah.
Idle hands are not good for me. Also, but I mean, I'm learning, I'm adapting. Rest is key.
Yep. Are you doing any biohacking? Are you do sauna, cold tub? I mean, I'm sure you meditate and do all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But anything you're into right now?
I love an infrared sauna.
Yep.
Cold tub, we're getting to. I would rather do cryo. It's something about it's being wet and cold together.
Yeah, but I mean, cryo's just not. I don't know if cryo's long enough.
I don't think it is.
It's
I don't
not.
think it is. It's a fun jolt. It's like an endorphin burst after. You're like, I feel great, and then you're like, wait, did that really do anything?
And then like 10 minutes later, you're like, I just kind of feel the same.
Yeah, and you're like, that was a fun high for a second.
Yeah.
I will say breath work is probably my favorite thing right now because it's so easily accessible. My really good friend Nilu, she just put out a book. I actually met her on just before the world shut down on a surf yoga girls trip to El Salvador. She ended up being my roommate in this kind of retreat, and we hit it off immediately. But she hosts breathwork sessions through Zoom and in person.
What's her name again?
Her name's Nilu, Neelou. Okay. And then oh my God, she's going to kill me. It's Malekapur, Malak. Oh God, Pho. I will send it to you.
Oh, perfect.
It's called The Art of Sacred Smoke. It's I'm very open to I was raised Catholic, but I'm very spiritual. And I think certain rituals, certain practices, whatever works for you, I think is great. And however you can build that, to me, that's a form of biohacking as well as being on a spiritual level. So,
totally agree.
Yeah, so she has been awesome, and I'll do breathwork sessions with her, and it's wild. It is wild what happens. A lot of people understand it from the guys of Wim Hof and whatnot, but when you do this, the double inhale, exhale.
Have you done that? Have you done the breath work with her and then done the cold tub yet?
No, and I need to.
That's what you need to do.
And get the full experience.
Full effect,
I think it's incredible. Yeah. So breathwork has been really, I do it weekly at this point, and it just always resets. And I try and incorporate it actually in my ride. So I'll talk about doing a double breath, a double inhale, hold, and an exhale, especially if I'm trying to get people's heart rate back down after a wild hit section, just for them to re-regulate and get back into their space and not be so cortisol heavy in their head and CO2 laden. So,
love it. Okay. We can find you, all the Peloton people can find Kendall everywhere. I mean, it seems like she's doing something every day. Spiritual Gangster is going to drop here soon. She's designing it. Chats on the Green on your Instagram, which is what? Just Kendall?
It's FitX10. Okay. FIT. I've had it. It's stuck. We're keeping it.
It works. It seems to be working for you. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate it. This was a blast.
Good luck on everything you got going on. I know you're staying busy, but you seem to be killing it out there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Once the weather, we'll be killing it even more. We'll get there.
I know you will. All right. Thanks, Kendall.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right, cheers.